Mr. Speaker, I once asked my grandfather where he was when his peers were being allocated huge tracts of land, across the Kisii region. And he told me that at that point, it didn't matter to him, to own huge tracts of land, because he couldn't imagine that at some point population will grow. He couldn't imagine that at some point land will be inadequate. That is the challenge we are also facing as far as the housing matter is concerned. It is for that reason, Honorable Speaker, that today, even as a member of parliament, my house sits in a 50 by 100 piece of land. And that is my area in Kisii area. Because of the carelessness and the don't care attitude my forefathers had as far as land allocation is concerned. Honorable Speaker, it is prerogative of every government to think and create structures that define the future of a country. I get surprised, Honorable Speaker, that we are seated here just talking about matters of today, talking about matters of now, not imagining what will befall this country as populations grow day in, day out in another 20, 30 years. When members of parliament rise on their seats telling people that housing matter is not necessary, it is not a necessity, when we all know that it is important to have food, yes. It is important to have clothing, yes. But it's also important to have shelter. And that is what this government is talking about. And when you talk about importance of having food, this very finance bill has catered for that. And that is why we are talking about zero rating taxation on the farm inputs. In another few days or so, food production will be low in terms, the cost of food, the cost of producing food will be low, food will be adequate, people will have a lot of energy, but they will not have shelter. And that is what we are saying today, Honorable Speaker, that it is important for us to pass this finance bill as far as if there is nothing else that we need to be thinking about, then let's think about this housing thing. I imagine back in my area, and I keep saying this, that Kisii, Honorable Speaker, is turning to be a village slum. There is no land, but there are some pieces of land owned by government. And that is what we want to make use of. We are telling the members of the public that even as we think about today, in another 30 years or 20 or so, we'll need now to imagine the urbanization, because Kenya is largely urban in terms of, in nature. Everyone is moving urban. But now we are telling the people this way, that through this finance bill, you will be able to have structures built by government in your own sub-counties, so that in the inadequacy of land, it does not really affect you. Your people will have shelter. Because of the zero rating in terms of the farm inputs, your people will have food. Then people will live very okay. And that is the essence of the finance bill. But Honorable Speaker, listening to my colleagues from the minority side, and I listened keenly to Honorable Tienda Amolo, when he raised issue in terms of, cutting down the costs, the budget appropriation. But I get surprised, Honorable Speaker. We stayed here yesterday until 10 p.m. None of the members, not a single member of the minority was in this house to challenge the committee of supply when we were doing allocation. Except Olwatch. It is in this house that we allocate and reallocate funds. If you wanted to cut down the budget, if you wanted to downsize the surplus of a certain particular...
Osoro, also be fair to Beatrice Elachi, she was here up to the end of time.
I stand guided, Honorable Speaker. Yes. I was, of course, with Beatrice Elachi and Honorable Olwatch. But all the rest were not here. You are talking about cutting down the budget as far as appropriation is concerned. That is a prerogative of this House. You are not here, Honorable Tienda Amolo. So who else do you want to cut down that budget if you are not here? You are complaining that we are, collecting money left, right, and center. But we passed that budget here. We passed the surplus here. It is a shame. It is a complete shame, Honorable Speaker. And it is important for Kenyans to know that the budget is pushed through your taxes. And that is what the essence of this finance bill is all about. The budget...
Give him 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is through this finance bill that we're able to display where collection of money collection of revenue is going to come from. When we passed the budget yesterday, we are justifying our collection, our source of income through this finance bill. So even as you challenge the finance bill, ask yourself, what element of this committee of supply did you challenge yesterday in the committee of supply? None. You're telling us to borrow. How do we borrow? To what extent can this country borrow? Do you want us to go to the Ghana way? How do you say that you're defending the content creators? But we've displayed to you, we've been able to reduce their taxation from 15%, to less than 10%. I mean, really, why do you want to play populist politics when you know you also need salaries? You know very well that your classes need to be built. Your road needs to be done. You are here shouting about CDF. Where do you want money?
The Honorable Dr. Jackson Kosgei. Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. On the onset, as I present my thoughts to this august House, I wish to say I support the motion. At independence, Mr. Speaker, our founding fathers had a conversation. Where do we take our newly independent countries moving forward? And the discussion they had was that we develop a philosophy not founded on the Western capitalism purely, or the Eastern socialism, but they looked at what they called an African democratic socialism. It had three thematics, Mr. Speaker, that we want to develop Africa with an equitable economic development. Second, they talked about an inclusive formation of our social structure. And they developed three strategic philosophies that informed our sessional paper, 1965. They talked about that in this, we need to build an economy, as they were addressing a financial bill like today, an economy that will promote a self-reliance, promote national unity, and also national development by pooling our resources. I am a son of a veteran war soldier in 1945. He told me when I caught polio that, son, now that you have lost your legs, you have a challenge. But let me tell you, you have no option but to improve upward. Never become a victim of paralysis by analysis. If we think Africa is poor and we continue to say we are poor, we will be paralyzed. We must look for a solution, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I wish to encourage us as leaders that we would like to be self-reliant as a country. And the best thing to do is to look at what we have to improve our nation. And therefore, I support this budget, which is bold, encouraging an African to be independent. Other details about how to elevate our situation has had some other mitigation given out in the country. So let us not send a message to the Kenyan people that we are done. We are not. We are able to rise up again after the Mr. Speaker. So I encourage this House, we support this bill without intimidating our own country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Kosgei. Peter Kaluma.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, the main reason why parliaments exist in the world is on the doctrine that there can be no taxation without representation. And so I want to beg to remind both sides of the House that once this finance bill is passed, it will not be anybody it will be you who taxed the Kenyans. And that is why you are elected directly by those Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, I have a problem with what is in clause 2 in terms of definition of person, and I know the chair for the committee is listening. My interpretation of what is in clause 2, if you read it together with section 26, subsection 5 of the Tax Act referred, includes everybody. Everybody, possibly in terms of the definition under that section 26, section 5, it includes your ancestors. And I fear if we don't look at it again, you will have a situation where in definition of person, you will be obligated to take over the tax obligations of your relative, including the dead one. So I want to request the Finance Committee to look at this as we proceed to the Committee of the Whole House. Honorable Speaker, I have an issue with what is at clause 36. And my view, Honorable Speaker, is that this would fundamentally deny people access to justice. Honorable members, particularly approaching elections, even in the last elections, Honorable Speaker, you remember when we were approaching, we were just hit with very big taxation claims, things we did not owe. The danger of clause 36,
Yes,
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Peter. Rahim, what is out of order? Give the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Kaluma is misleading this House. He has not read the report. The committee has already proposed clause 36 to be deleted, what Treasury had proposed. So it has already been deleted. He should read the report. Thank you.
Honorable Kaluma.
I've read the report and they propose deletion. Until it is deleted and the House resolves so, it is part of the bill. And I want to encourage the committee that if indeed there is a proposal to delete it, let it not suffer the fate of other proposals by committees which were dropped at the floor. Because the consequences otherwise, Honorable Speaker, would be grave. And I'm telling Honorable Dawood, a person will hit you with a taxation claim of over 2 billion or 20 billion approaching elections. And you know you will not get that tax clearance certificate if you have to deposit 20 or 200 million to then proceed to exercise your rights thereunder. So it will deny access to justice, which is a fundamental right. I would request that the committee, if indeed you have recommended, proceed and deal with it. Honorable Speaker, I have a concern with what is at clause 24. Clause 24 is talking about the increment in terms of income tax up to 35% for category of people. Honorable Speaker, I want the committee to consider those people in fixed term contracts, like state officers within this parliament. And I know you know who state officers within the institution of parliament are. Previously, Honorable Speaker, salary increment was a right to state officers within parliament, like all other employees under the Employment Act. But Honorable Speaker, when the terms were gazetted for some officers, particularly the members here, the annual salary increment was taken away. The consequence is that so many